Every day we live our lives. As we go to sleep and the night energy passes us with the interactions we encounter and witness throughout the world. In sports, these interactions are sometimes missed, taken for granted as we attempt to escape the social and cultural factors continuing to live. This is a show that faces those factors head on to explore ways we can all do better and be better. This show will strive to ignore nothing. This show will look the uncomfortable in the eye, smirking at its importance. This show will reflect on how society and sports constantly dance with each other. This is the Sunday Slip. JN, KT, welcome on in, y'all. Welcome on into the Sunday Slip. It's going to be a fun time today, y'all. Of course, we're going to be talking about Brian Flores. And we're going to see exactly what's going on within this lawsuit, talk a little bit, kind of continuing the discussion of what we were talking about a couple weeks ago in terms of black coaches in the NFL and how this lawsuit that Brian Flores is has just served to the NFL, why this is going to be so impactful, not just for the NFL, it's going to be impactful for the MLB. Not as impactful towards NBA per se. They don't have as many problems as the NBA and the MLB. Still kind of there. In hockey, I mean, I'm not even going to touch that because that just would be a waste of my time. Don't get you slipping though. I mean, this is America, what we're talking about. Brian Flores, the fired head coach of the Dolphins, recently served a lawsuit to the NFL, suing the whole NFL, but predominantly three teams. He is suing the New York Giants, he is suing the Miami Dolphins, and he is suing the Broncos, the Denver Broncos. He also listed the other 29 teams as John Doe defendants within this lawsuit. Now, this is a class action lawsuit that Brian Flores is putting forward, and within this class action lawsuit, it means that he is not the only one that is going to be it is going to be a part of the prosecuting team. When it's a class action lawsuit, this means that there are going to be more people that are allowed to come forward if they feel like they have been wronged by the NFL as well. With this, we may see growing people moving forward talking about the various injustices they have been a part of in terms of the NFL. Today I will talk about a little bit of that, if this lawsuit is actually going to be passed, and what the impact is going to be, even if it doesn't go through fully, or even if the defendants, aka the NFL, the ownership of the NFL, will be able to say that, yeah, we didn't do anything wrong. We are doing our best, as they said in a memo on Wednesday, saying that they are doing their best to be equitable for all head coaches, coordinator, and other job candidates within that. One thing that I feel like they have not done is been equitable, although they have attempted to be equal within these spaces. If they were to be more equitable, we would actually see a lot more strict and more better rules served out other than the Runa rule. and Rooney ruled as a good place, but people have made a mockery of it for years, including, as I mentioned, the Atlanta Falcons when they interviewed their special teams coach when they were in the hiring process, when they ultimately hired Dan Quinn, their special teams coach, who did not have a shot of becoming the head coach, was the only black head coach and minority head coach that was actually interviewed throughout that whole process. The Rooney Rule is a rule that people use to skate by. And now Brian Flores is the most recent victim of that. As although the New York Giants have reportedly interviewed other black head coaches during their process, they already offered and gave the job to a head coach and had not released that, knowing that they were going to interview Brian Flores later. The only reason that Brian Flores was able to find out about this is because Bill Belichick, the head coach and GM of the New England Patriots and a former boss of Brian Flores, congratulated Brian, thinking that he was texting and communicating with the Brian Dabble, who is the person who is hired to be the Giants head coach. Brian Flores then replied to Bill Belichick, "I really appreciate this, but I have not interviewed. I am scheduled to interview tomorrow." And when Brian Flores realized that Bill Belichick had communicated with the wrong person, this is when he said, "I am fed up with this process. I am angry." Because one thing that is being underrated within this whole process is that Brian Flores will never get a job in the NFL again. He is willing to stand on this hill, knowing damn well that he has affected his potential ability to get back into this circle of groups that's already being exclusive towards people who may not even deserve jobs. That is very, what is the word that I'm trying to think of? Limited to the people that you know. And quite frankly, the people that you need to know are all white. The NFL is down to one head coach who people want fired in Tomlin. But we have seen a history of how these black candidates have been blackballed. Now we'll see if there's going to be another black head coach candidate that is hired, as the New Orleans Saints have put in a request and will be interviewing Eric Bieniemy today. I would argue that is a job that people would not want for multiple reasons. One, because I'm a Falcons fan and fuck the Saints. On the other hand, the Saints are $70 million above in cap space. They do not have a quarterback that is actually good. They have Jameis Winston, who's coming back from ACL injury, and they have Taysom Hill, a celebrated tight end, who is coming off of a Liz Frank injury, who may or may not be ready for training camp. They are picking in the middle of the order, in the middle of the draft order, in a set of draft class that is not high on QBs. Now that doesn't say much, because last year we had a lot of good QB draft players that were gone in the first round, and quite frankly, none of them look like they are actually going to make an imprint. Now it's only after 1 year. But that is not a job that Eric Bieniemy may want, knowing damn well that coaches get hired in situations like the Saints, where it's a situation that no white coach would want, no reasonable coach would want in the first place. Why would they not want this? Because it's going to be very difficult to win. The person who is highest on the New Orleans cap is not happy with the team, knowing damn well we don't know what's going to happen with Michael Thomas moving forward, and it's only going to make their cap situation even worse. This goes to my point that I talked about last week, where these jobs that get hired, that black coaches get hired for, are not good. This gets carried out within the MLB as well. Look at the Houston Astros. Although they lost to the Atlanta Braves in the World Series, they were able to go to the World Series not because they thought they were going to go to the World Series, although they are a very talented team. They were faced with a big situation of cheating, and guess who they called? They called the black guy who would only take this job because no other coach would want that job. They called Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker is, of course, one of the few black coaches who have been hired in history. I think the number is up to 13 black head coaches, black managers, in the MLB that's been hired. And the level of talent that they have to be in is astronomical. Not only do you have to be black and be able to make it to the major leagues, you have to be great in the major leagues, damn near Hall of Fame worthy to even be considered as a manager within the MLB. This is very similar to what's going on within the NFL. While you see a lot of head coaches around, Sean McVay, very good coach. Kyle Shanahan, very good coach. Arthur Smith, not a very good coach, but none of those three played within the NFL. They may have played football at some point in their life, but they have all been parts of nepotism or just knowing somebody. And this is the situation that is faced. In the Brian Flores case, there are three bombshells that have to be acknowledged within this. The first is, of course, the text messages from the Giants, or from Bill Belichick, talking about the Giants already hiring Brian Daboll, and Bill Belichick sending the wrong text message to the wrong person. Or maybe he was sending the right text message to the wrong person. Anyway, Bill Belichick is not the villain within this situation. He is just the guy caught with lemon booty in a upset stomach, knowing damn well he done fucked up. A very human thing to fuck up on, sending the text to the wrong person. I know I've been a victim of it. At least it was nothing big as this. And that is the thing that set forth this whole process. The next bombshell was that the coach and owner, or the owner of the Dolphins, Stephen Ross, who was supposed to be one of the good guys. Maybe there aren't any good guys as owners in the NFL. Maybe that should be the lesson learned throughout this whole process. But he offered Brian Flores $100K per loss because he wanted that team to lose. That team did not lose, as over the 2 seasons, although they did not make the playoffs, they were able to finish 10-6 and 9 or 10-7. Pretty damn good records in the AFC, which is a very tough place to make if you are not winning that division. And thus, that's what kept the Miami Dolphins out within those situations. Now, the biggest thing about this whole situation is that they wanted him to lose. And when he did not lose and fit their ridiculous standard of what shouldn't be accepted by any owner in a space where you're supposed to be winning and striving to win, as it's going to affect everybody else. Players, other coaches, money. Brian Flores was able to win and therefore pissed off Stephen Ross and subsequently fired after 2 winning seasons. Make that make sense? The next thing that Stephen Ross did is that he set up an illegal meetup with Tom Brady the season before, knowing damn well he was thinking, oh, that's just the Patriots way. This is a good way to try to get Tom Brady to the Miami Dolphins. Thinking that Brian Flores was going to have some sort of connection, knowing damn well it was against the tampering rules within that process. Both Tom Brady or Brian Flores did not know that this was happening. I wonder why Stephen Ross thought this was okay to do. And if this news actually came out, how this would make the other people look. The last bombshell within this is the lawsuit with the Denver Broncos. And you're wondering, what does Brian Flores have to do with the Denver Broncos? In an article from the Washington Post, this is what was said within 2019. The lawsuit alleges that in a 2019 interview with the Broncos, team executives, including John Elway and Joe Ellis, arrived an hour late and looked completely disheveled, making it obvious that they had been drinking heavily the night before. It was clear, the lawsuit says, that Flores was interviewed only because of the Rooney Rule, and the Broncos never had any intention to consider him as a legitimate candidate for the job. Denver ultimately hired Vic Fangio, who was fired last month after 3 seasons. Vic Football Fangio was very unprepared for this situation. I wonder if the Denver Broncos would have wanted Brian Flores within this situation and try to lift that team up. You'll never know. And you're absolutely right, Giggities. Brian Flores is going to be blackballed from the NFL, but he knew this. He knew damn well going into this that this was going to happen. And you know what this is? A man who was fed the fuck up with the hiring practice of the NFL and the racism, the institutionalized racism that goes on. I'm not calling Stephen Ross a racist. I'm not calling John Elway and Joe Ellis a racist. I'm not even calling the front office of the New York Giants racist. I'm saying that their behaviors are an indictment of the hiring practice that is a whole core of racism that is institutionalized within this system. That this is not a race or black issue exactly. That this is a labor issue that goes on more. Hello, Holly. Good afternoon. I hope you're doing well. This issue is so much bigger than what it seems on the surface, because this hiring practice shows so much more, that even within this elevated space of the NFL, where these black people are actually being paid and made millionaires in a lot of the cases, that they still do not have the power to get up to that next level of what it is that they want to do. That it doesn't matter that Mitch Man with the 7-month resub, thank you. Giggities with the gift sub to Holly, I really appreciate y'all. That the NFL has this system that that they are able to bring people up through class that typically wouldn't have that ability. And they still are met with a glass ceiling when going to ownership, when going to front office jobs, and when going to head coaches, all the way down to coordinators and other jobs. And that's what makes this class action lawsuit so much more interesting. Because he's trying to bring in so many people within this. And my goodness, Brian Flores is going to go down in history just like Colin Kaepernick will. Or not just like. You know, they settled outside with Colin Kaepernick. I do not foresee Brian Flores is going to try to settle a goddamn thing. Because this, going into this and what Brian Flores is doing, he's already put in forward that he knows he's not going to be hired by anybody ever again in the NFL. But that this is a principled stance that he is taking in a chance to try to embed the hiring practice not only in the NFL, but things that they can reflect over in other spaces as well. That maybe in the MLB, that they can hire more people that are minorities and look like the majority of who make up the players. Or maybe it can trickle on to the NBA, where maybe black people who don't have the talent to make it to the NBA but are smart enough to be head coaches and can lift up a team to win that trophy at the end. Like a Mike Budenholzer. Because I don't know about you, all I see around the NBA are head coaches that are black or only former players, while these white people are getting the jobs without having to put in the work or the standard that these black people do. Shadow Kid, welcome on in. Gigs, thank you for the gift sub to Count Shadow. I really appreciate it. This is the class action lawsuit that is going on within... This is the class action lawsuit that's going on within the NFL, and my God, is this exciting. I don't know about you, but I'm titillated. Absolutely titillated. So I want to bring up a video real quick. And I'm actually, I don't know if that's actually a smart idea, because then I won't be able to post this on YouTube, because I want to post it on YouTube. But I encourage you to watch the interview where they had Brian Flores on Get Up, where they spent 17 minutes on that interview with him, talking about this lawsuit. Let me read some more excerpts from this Washington Post. Flores was ostracized after that, the lawsuit says, while adding he was subsequently, quote, defamed throughout the media and the league as he was labeled by the Dolphins brass as someone who was difficult to work with. This was reflective of an all too familiar angry black man stigma that is often casted upon black men who are strong in their morals and convictions, while white men are coined as passionate for those very same attributes. Yeah, man. It is good to be titillated, my man. Yeah, Hugh Jackson, that's an interesting case. Because throughout my research of this problem, I ran across at least 2 articles that were saying you don't want Hugh Jackson to be a part of this lawsuit. And I'm like, why not? Would anybody like to guess the ethnicity of these writers who said that Hugh Jackson wouldn't be a good person to be a part of this lawsuit? Even though some of the same things that Brian Flores experienced are the same things that Hugh Jackson experienced, even though Hugh Jackson was hired a couple times. They're white. Which then adds the next level within this whole process of how white media members love to do their best to try to bring down viable experiences of black people, thinking, but that guy, no, he's not good enough for y'all. How do you know? How are you going to speak for what is best for a black person, knowing damn well you don't know the experiences of that person? You tell me that, and I'll try to figure out exactly what you're trying to talk about, saying that Hugh Jackson would not be a good candidate to be a part of this class action lawsuit. Going back to the Broncos have responded to this, calling that Brian Flores' assertions are blatantly false, and that their January 19 interview began promptly at the scheduled time, and that their process was thorough and fair to determine the most qualified candidate for a head coaching position. Even though Vic Fangio wasn't qualified for that position, and he wasn't the best for that head coaching job, as you can clearly see that he was fired from that position and didn't do anywhere close to a good job. How can you after the fact say that that was the best man for the job? Now hindsight is definitely 2020. But what kind of gaslighting bullshit are the Broncos front office talking about? We can clearly see that that wasn't the appropriate candidate for that job. And trying to admit that you thought that was the best person for that job only speaks to your hiring practices are terrible. So terrible that you yourself will actively lose money and lose the reputation that you're built on, thinking that you're some Hall of Fame guy with John Elway, knowing damn well you don't know a damn thing about running a front office, because the best thing that you did was to get a already Hall of Famer who barely was able to get y'all a Super Bowl. So let me know, like, why you feel that your process was thorough and fair and the best for you. If that was the best that you could have done, maybe you shouldn't be in a job. And quite frankly, nothing that John Elway has done, other than win 2 Super Bowls as a player, have demonstrated that he knows anything about being a general manager. These are the levels that I keep talking about that are frustrating within this whole process. That I don't get why people think that this is okay. Why people think that this is how things should be. And I'd love the chat to tell me if there is anything wrong that I said. Or you're out there looking at this, go in and comment on something. Trying to find the flaws within the argument that I'm talking about. Exactly, this is America. So what's going to change? What is the only thing that can change this whole process? The only thing that's going to change in this process is if the players are able to stand up and do something about it. Because they are the only ones within this situation that's actually going to be able to help this labor issues. Because those black head coach candidates do not have the power within this situation to force the owner's hand. Do I believe this lawsuit will follow through for anything beneficial? I'm not sure. You're absolutely right, Holly. They don't want to change. It's all they've ever known. They think that it's okay that these practices can continue the way that they are. I just don't know. Do I forever foresee the players collectively getting together and saying, hey, we don't like this, we don't appreciate this? I don't know. I don't see it. And that, my friend, is absolutely disturbing and sad to see. They're going to attempt to shift that narrative to, this 100K per loss. But Brian Flores, he did not get some just random lawyers. He got them New York lawyers. And I'm telling you, they are going to be ready to fight. They ain't trying to get some settlement. They're fighting to win this thing. Which I think goes back to why this whole situation being a class action lawsuit is so big. It's because the more ammo that you have to be able to demonstrate this, and the only thing that this lawsuit is claiming that they have to do is to demonstrate that there's racist hiring practices that have been going on within the NFL for years. That's not hard to do. I say that all to say, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. It's gonna be tough, and I don't know. I don't know what is the next step. We're going to take a quick coffee break. When I come back, we'll continue this conversation to see what are the other things that could be going on. I'll be back with the Sunday Slip.